All right, folks, today we're diving into an opinion piece in the Deseret News that made me raise both my eyebrows and my fists. The article in question was called "It's Time to Push Back Against the Glamorization of Polyamory," and it argues that monogamy is the social ideal and that polyamory is risky, misguided, and actually undermines happiness and children's well-being. Have you read it? And if so, I want to hear your thoughts. I'm the sex Mormon therapist with the emphasis on X. I'm a certified sex therapist here to help you get the information we never got at church, unlearn the shame we did get at church, and reconnect with your pleasure, because pleasure is not a sin. So make sure to subscribe if you're looking for real talk, tips, and tricks to better sex and relationships. First off, it's rich that given the cultural legacy many writers and readers of this publication carry, many in the circle of this conversation come from communities steeped in polygamy and monogamy as social control. And now we are telling others their relationship choices are immoral or doomed. Let's unpack that. Point one, many people are happy in monogamy, yes, but works for many does not necessarily equal a good fit for everyone. The article states that married monogamous people report the highest level of happiness. That is true. For many people, monogamy does feel good, stable, meaningful, and it happens to be the most socially acceptable and idealized form of relationship structure within our society. So, of course, for folks for whom this works, it works well. But, and this is crucial, just because it works for many does not mean it's the only valid model. Research on consensual non-monogamy or ethical non-monogamy indicates that relationship satisfaction, sexual satisfaction, and emotional health can be comparable to monogamous couples. For example, a meta-analysis of 35 studies, which included 24,000 plus participants, found no significant difference in relationship or sexual satisfaction between monogamous and non-monogamous relationships. The research article, headed by Joel Anderson et al., is called "Countering the Monogamy Superiority Myth," a meta-analysis of the differences in relationship satisfaction and sexual satisfaction as a function of relationship orientation. It just came out in March of 2025 and is found in the Journal of Sex Research. And The Guardian covered it and did a great article on it around the same time. Another review called "Satisfaction in Consensual Non-Monogamy," published in the Family Journal by Curtis Garner et al., found that people in CNM, ENM relationships reported being satisfied with no significant difference across CNM types. So the Deseret News article's claim that monogamy equals the best route is by far overstated and not empirically ironclad. As you'll routinely hear me say, if it's compulsory, it's probably going to go sideways. When folks treat monogamy as the only healthy route, as the only way to have a successful relationship, it ends up having coercive dynamics. Point two, let's be careful with the comparison to polygamy and cultural universal claims. The article draws a line from polygamy, especially polygyny, to polyamory and uses historical research to say polygamous societies are more despotic, less scientifically and economically advanced, and that polygamy is particularly disastrous for women. But mixing polygamy, where there are usually plural wives, often patriarchal, uneven power, with consensual polyamory, which is often egalitarian, negotiated, and power-aware, is like comparing apples to chainsaws. It sets up a super false equivalence that polygamy structural inequalities equals polyamory by default, and that's just not the case. Also, assuming that because one social structure predominated in areas of the world that quite frankly differ widely from most American or European value systems, and then trying to project that model for the modern West is overly deterministic. We must look at cultural and relational ethics, power dynamics, consent, negotiation, not just simply count heads. Point three, the article's heavy moral framing in regards to children being safer within the confines of monogamy definitely needs some nuance. The article makes strong claims, like kids whose parents invite an unrelated adult into their home are at exponentially higher risk of abuse. That's a very heavy claim, and it relies on data drawn from non-equal footing contexts like single-parent households, vulnerable populations, non-consensual adults living with minors, etc. It's interesting that most of the data about this is actually about step-parents, but you don't see these authors writing this article stating that folks should never remarry monogamously. In fact, some of the worst abuses in history have happened inside monogamous insular families. The presence of a wedding ring or a single partner label doesn't magically ensure safety. In fact, secrecy, patriarchy, and isolation can create perfect conditions for abuse, especially in religious or conservative systems that discourage questioning authority or airing dirty laundry. Domestic violence, marital rape, child sexual abuse, and coercive control all occur overwhelmingly within monogamous households. So when people try to claim that monogamy is the moral safeguard against harm, we need to remember it's not the structure that protects people, it's consent, accountability, and transparency. At the end of the day, relational safety, communication, boundaries, consent, emotional attunement matter a lot more than simply the head count of the people in a structure. A two-person household with poor boundaries, trauma, lack of emotional safety can be much worse than a more complex poly set with strong boundaries and high intentionality. Many love configurations can support children, provide safety, clarity, and structure. The article definitely ignores that nuance. Point 4 I want to make. Restricting the narrative to monogamy or disaster sells short the complexity of human desire and relational diversity. The article frames advocating polyamory as progressives wanting to renew culture, thereby casting polyamory as ideological, trendy, dangerous. First of all, it's not just progressives who practice non-monogamy, but I digress. In reality, some people genuinely feel constrained by monogamy, not because they're rebelling, but because their relational needs include novelty, multiple attachments, or non-exclusive frameworks. Research shows that CNM or ENM requires more open communication, better negotiation skills, conflict management, all of which are part of a skill set that any relationship benefits from. If we treat monogamy as the only right model and dismiss other relational forms as inherently dysfunctional, we risk pathologizing people who aren't a good fit for monogamy, increasing shame, reducing relational honesty, and causing many other problems. So again, anything that is compulsory, whether monogamy, polyamory, or any ideology, is likely to go poorly. It's the choice, the autonomy, the fit that matters. So point number 5, fit over formula. The article's tone says, monogamy ought to remain our social ideal, and we should reject the progressive push for polyamory. From a sex therapist lens, ideal for whom? For what culture? For what person? The better question for relational health isn't monogamy good, poly bad, but which structure supports healthy communication, consent, autonomy, relational responsibility, and emotional safety for these particular people. If I'm working with a couple who sense monogamy is suffocating them, I don't clamp down and say, no, you must monogamously commit or else you're going to fail. I help them explore whether there's consent and clarity, boundaries and agreements, emotional maturity to navigate non-traditional forms. And if I work with someone raised in a framework where multiple partners were implied but not negotiated, like in our FLDS community, I help unpack trauma, power, coercion, which again is very different from genuine polyamory. Point 6, we can acknowledge that monogamy does carry benefits without that benefit turning into a monopoly. So yes, research shows married people with one partner on average report higher happiness, less early mortality, etc. in many data sets. But these are averages. They don't account for the fact that those relationships may also benefit from social support, cultural approval, legal recognition, resources, etc. The research comparing CNM versus monogamy suggests that when non-monogamy is consensual and well negotiated, outcomes can be just as good. So monogamy is a valid and often good fit, but it is not the universal standard of happiness for everyone. Point 7, the normative ideal framing can be really harmful. This article uses normative language like monogamous marriage maximizes happiness, child safety, and the common good. That sort of language implies non-monogamous folks are less moral, less safe, less good. That sets us up for stigma. For folks exploring relational alternatives or who've left monogamy because it wasn't working, that's shaming. As therapists, it's our job to hold space for relational autonomy and diversity so long as everything is consensual and ethical. So you want to keep in mind that pathology is not in the structure, it's in the lack of negotiation or lack of consent or lack of unaddressed trauma. So here's what I want you to take away. 1, yes, monogamy works very well for many people. If you feel safe, chosen, desired, treasured in a monogamous framework, and you built that consciously, awesome. 2, no, monogamy is not the one-size-fits-all social ideal that gives you a free pass to judge other people. 3, the article from the Deseret News is pushing a default narrative that tends to elevate one relational structure and dismiss others. That's not therapeutic nor inclusive, that's ideology. 4, if your relational arrangement is consensual, negotiated, ethical, and supports emotional safety and autonomy, then it can be healthy, and the research backs it up. 5, if you're in monogamy but you feel coerced through culture, religion, or guilt, or you're in a polyconsensual non-monogamy relationship but you feel lost, unnegotiated, unsafe, it's time to talk about shifts that might benefit your life. Fit matters, choice matters, safety definitely matters. And for our YouTube family, if you're thinking, well, hold on, what relationship model fits me? Drop a comment, hit subscribe, share the video. Let's keep building a space where relational health is about choices made freely, boundaries kept strong, desire acknowledged honestly, and structures aligned with our truth and values. I'd love to hear from you. What's coming up for you? Did you see this article? Did you read it? What were your reactions? And if you enjoy my content and want to go deeper, go sign up for my newsletter at natashahelfer.com. You'll get a free copy of my current download full of juicy information. And if this resonated with you, remember to ring my bell and subscribe because I give you full consent.